to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to my ball. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good evening, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Tuesday, April the 29th. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined by Dante Collinelli, our in-house draft guru. And Dante, the 2025 NFL draft's in the books. It's over.
Yeah, finally.
Finally. Now we got now we can actually talk about the guys who Miami took. Some not much of a surprise, some a few surprises. A lot of the names we took, we spoke about here the past month or so on our preview show. I'd probably say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the names we spent time talking about. So we're going to talk about all that on tonight's show. But before we get to any of that, a quick shout out. First off, if you're watching this on YouTube, live or after the fact, do me a favor right now. Smash the like button. Let's all take a second. Let's get it out of the way. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Just get it over with. Okay. Second, want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Everyone go to the website, caneswear.com. Or if you're in South Florida, go to 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. Just walk in the store. Either way, caneswear.com has the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. If you need a hat, a hoodie, a jersey, shorts, swim trunks, a polo shirt, a windbreaker, a jacket, anything with the Miami Dolphins logo on it, Caneswear.com is the place to be. They ship internationally as well, and they have it all. Plus, they have stuff for the Miami Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, the Miami Heat, and the Miami Marlins, and all the college teams in Florida. Caneswear.com. Also, or 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. They have the best stuff if you're a Dolphins fan. And real quick, Dolphins Talk Extra. If you like this show, you want more of me or more of Josh and Aaron or any of that stuff, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. We have a private message board. We give away autographs. We give away bobblehead dolls. We give away Miami Dolphins memorabilia. And we have so much more stuff as well. Go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. $3 a month. Can't beat the price. All right, let's get right into it. Let's start round 1, pick 13, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan. Dante, give me your thoughts on Kenneth Grant, how he fits in this Miami offense. And I know there were some rumblings by some of the quote-unquote experts that you don't take someone who plays that position that high. What are your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, so, I mean, we talked about Kenneth Grant at length during our pre-draft series where we talked about the defensive line group. And I kind of pointed him out as the only defensive lineman that I thought would be realistically there at 13 that would also fit the Dolphins. And so that ended up happening, right? And so that was really good. I think both of us probably had Kenneth Grant pretty high on our Dolphin-centric boards. I love the pick. I think he's a really talented player. If you want a really, really deep dive into his scouting report, there's a million of them out there. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the reaction to the pick, because I think that also will kind of get into his scouting report. So you make a really good point that a lot of national analysts have kind of talked about, like, hey, don't take a nose tackle in the top 13. That's not appropriate value for that position. Here's the thing. I agree. Kenneth Grant, to me, is not just a nose tackle. I think when you watch this player on tape, if you sit down and you earnestly evaluate this player, you'll realize that he does not play a ton of nose tackle. More than 50% of his career snaps come in the B gap as a 3-tech, a more traditional defensive tackle. I think people look at the player, they see 6'3", 340 pounds, and they go nose tackle, which, look, is fair. If that's all the information you have, that's totally fair. I understand why you would feel that way. But for these national analysts who actually watch tape, and I know that they do, I've been really surprised to see them kind of pigeonhole Kenneth Grant as just a nose tackle, because I don't think that's what he gives you. This is a player with a really, really quick first step. He's got a few pass rush moves. He still needs to figure that part of his game out, but he's really athletic. He's fast. He's explosive. He can get into gaps. He can be a penetration style player. I think that makes him incredibly unique, and I think that is the reason that he is worth the 13th overall pick in the draft, specifically to a team like the Miami Dolphins that, I mean, you know, they were going to be starting me and you at defensive tackle if they didn't draft 3 of them.
It's not good.
Yeah,
it's
and week 1, it looks a lot better now than it did a week ago, at least, right? And so I think Kenneth Grant, to me, I think anyone who tells you that he's just a nose tackle and that's not appropriate value for Kenneth Grant is being incredibly disingenuous, frankly. Now, there's a whole conversation to be had about whether or not you believe in Kenneth Grant's upside, whether or not you think he's going to reach his ceiling. Those are fair qualms to have. Those are fair caveats. Kenneth Grant does need to develop a little bit to be worth the 13th overall pick. There's no doubt about that. But you can't just sit here and act like he's just some, you know, bump on a log run defender who doesn't give you any juice, who isn't quick, who isn't athletic. That's absurd. That is just that's not who Kenneth Grant is. I'm fine if you're saying, hey, I see the vision, I'm not buying into the upside. Okay, fine. Like, that's a defensible take for you to have. That's not the take that I have. I like the upside with Kenneth Grant. I think the Dolphins are going to be a really good opportunity for him to develop. But these takes that he's just a nose tackle, it's not rooted in reality. It's not what he was at Michigan.
Yeah. And I also think a thing that played a part into this is we heard Chris Greer prior to the drafts and say, you know, the draft is like the next step, but there's still a lot of unsigned guys out there to sort of fix this or sort of, you know, have this roster be built before the start of the 2025 season. You look at the unsigned cornerbacks and such, were probably another area mine was looking at. Not that they're anything great, but there are guys to be signed. Not on the defensive line. There are no right now current free agent linemen out there that you want Miami to sign. So they needed to address this in the draft early, and often they did. They drafted it with their first pick, their last pick, and one in between. So I think that played a factor in it too. They could have went somewhere else in round 1, but then, you know, you're going to be then scrambling to get quality linemen to line up next to Zach Sealer. Grant, again, this is to me how I view this. We let Wilkins walk 2 years ago. Now we're trying to replace Wilkins. I know it's not the same exact player per se, but essentially, you know, lost a guy on the front line, and now we're going to replace a guy on the front line. And that's what they did. Like the pick, big boy who's an athlete, no doubt about it. So that's where we go with Kenneth Grant. Now, round 2. This one we got to spend some time on because it's not just the pick. It's the pick in the trade. They traded out of round 3, and they traded one of their picks in round 4 to move up to take Jonah Savanea, who will play guard in Miami out of Arizona. And I know the report came out yesterday from New England saying the Patriots at pick 38 we're going to take him. Miami moves into the 37th spot and takes him. And fans of the Dolphins want to build a statue to Chris Greer. Ha! We screwed New England. My take is this. Now, first off, I like the pick. I like the pick. But before we go, that was smart trade. There's a few things here. One, if Savanea is a great player, no one's going to remember the trade in a year. It's just the facts. 2, if Savanea is not a great player, then it's not a bad trade. But here's the third one no one's talking about. They could have stayed at 48 and taken Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. If Tate Ratledge ends up being a better player than Savanea, then that's also a bad trade. So we don't know today. I don't mind the trade per se, but we're going to wait and see before we call this trade a win, because the last 2 guys we took at the top of round 2 who played this position were Robert Hunt and Liam Eichenberg. If Savanea is more Robert Hunt and less Liam, good pick. If he's more Liam and less Hunt, bad pick. So we don't know today, but what are your thoughts on the trade, and what are your thoughts on the player?
Yeah, so the trade is a bit more difficult to evaluate because you have to factor in that report for the Patriots, and I think it came from a reliable source. So I think
it's pretty reliable. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And also, if you look at any trade value chart that has any merit, as much as it feels like an overpay on paper, it is not. The value of a top 40 pick is very high. They traded up from, it looks like only a trade up from 48 to 37, but you have to understand that picks depreciate in value the further you get back into the draft. So moving a 3 and a 4, especially with how late Miami's 3 is, it was basically 2 4s. I mean, let's be honest. I know that pick 98 was, a 3 from a compensatory pick. It's basically 2 4th-round picks to move up 10 spots in the second round. So value-wise, I don't have a problem with it. The thing that I struggle with the trade is it's not about the value. I like Jonas Savania as a player. It's not about the player. To me, I don't like that they didn't draft a football player for 100 straight picks. It's difficult for me to kind of sit down and accept that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, the trade up isn't bad value. If you look at most trade charts, it's pretty much an even trade relative to value, or the Dolphins actually come out slightly ahead if you use some of the newer ones as opposed to the Jimmy Johnson model. So either way, I think you're fine value-wise. And then I understand they still had another 4th-round pick, and I like the trade that they made with the Texans to get rid of pick. I think that was 116, if I'm not mistaken, or it was 135.
116, and they got a 6th, and
right.
So they give up 116 and a 7th. Who cares about the 7th? And they picked up a
future third,
179, and then a 3rd next year.
Right, and I think that's a good trade too. I think the problem that I have with, like, in a vacuum, right, I can sit here logically and go, okay, the Dolphins got appropriate value in 2 trades. I would tell you they fleeced the Texans, especially because I think the player the Texans drafted is not good. So I would tell you they fleeced the Texans. I think they got appropriate value in the trade up for Savania. My problem is you put a lot on the Savania pick kind of unintentionally and I tweeted this after the draft, we're going to talk about all the players on day 3. I think there's a couple that are fine. I really like their first pick on day 3, but ultimately, this is a 2-player class.
Yeah.
The entire everything is Kenneth Grant and Jonas Savania have to be above average, long-term quality starters. And I'm not saying that they can't. I would tell you that I think they can, actually, which is why I like this draft class. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to look at the state of this Dolphins roster and not wonder about trading away 135 and 98. Now, when they made the deal, I was really hoping they were going to try to get back into the 3rd round, maybe package their remaining 4 and some 7s, maybe even pull a future pick. I don't know. It didn't end up happening. It's hard for me to stomach taking Jonas Savania and Kenneth Grant with the first 37 picks in the draft, and then you don't pick again until you take Jordan Phillips, who we'll get to in a second, a player that I really like, a player I would have considered at 98, at 143, and your roster just isn't very good. I don't,
here's what this says, Dante, and it's the one thing fans don't want to hear. A, it's a rebuilding year, and B, they did the same thing in this draft they did in free agency.
Yeah.
We ain't getting fired. We're not on the hot seat. We don't care. We're playing the long game. And everyone says we're on a hot seat. Mind you, they got no facts to back it up. People just say it because they think it's true. They have no facts to back it up. Nobody's on the hot seat. Nobody's getting fired. If they win 1 or 2 games, sure, people get fired. That's just normal NFL pressure. But if they win the same amount of games they won last year, or even win 1 or 2 less, nobody getting fired. They're not in the hot seat. They're playing a long game here. And everyone thinks, and it drives fans nuts, because most fans and most logic tells you, God, you should be on the hot seat. And why aren't you moving heaven and earth to try and win this year? And they're like, you know what? We're playing a long game. And we did nothing in free agency. We didn't create $19 million with his contract. We didn't restructure Sealer to make money. We didn't restructure, anyone's contract to make any real money. And we signed a bunch of backups that nobody really gives a shit about. And then we come to the draft and we got all these picks, 2 picks in round 4, 2 picks in round 5, a pick at the end of round 3. And you know what? We really don't care about any of them. We really don't. So we're going to take a guy in round 1. We'll trade up in round 2, and the hell of the rest of the draft. If any of these guys hit, great. If not, okay, whatever. And now we're going to go out there and sign a bunch of old men to 1-year deals and it's going to be the next version of Shaq Barrett and Jordan Poyer, and probably most of them won't work out, but fans will get excited and they'll show up and spend money. That's what they did. And I know it's not fun to talk about. No one can believe it. That's why they keep saying they're on the hot seat when they're not. And it's a two-person draft with a bunch of late round picks. Maybe one or two of them will stick as somehow, some way. And that's it. And on to next year when they got more picks and they might be shopping for a quarterback in the early rounds. That's what you call facts. And I know fans don't like to hear it.
Yeah. So that's why I struggle with the Savania pick more so is about what it forces the class to look like. It forces the class to be a 2-player class. Now, I want to pivot to talking about Savania because I really do like the player. Now, it was a reach against my board. If you look at my board up on my Substack, I had Savania like probably closer to pick 70. Not a Dolphin-centric board, though. For me, if I'm doing a Dolphin-centric board, I think he would have been probably top 40. This is a player who comes in. He's a starting guard for you. He has really, really good power. I think he has good movement skills. He had the best 10-yard split at the NFL Combine among offensive linemen who weighed more than 315 pounds. I think that's incredibly important for the heavy outside zone scheme that the Dolphins want to run. I didn't love him at tackle. I feel like kicking him inside to guard is going to solve a significant number of the problems that I had with his pass protection. When you scout offensive linemen, one of the biggest indicators for me that a player should play guard as opposed to tackle is how well they move going backward, right? Because a tackle has to be athletic enough to kick slide out. And then if a rusher moves across their face, they then have to kick slide back in. And that can be a very quick movement. And when guys are moving backwards side to side, that can kind of expose some holes in their athleticism. Jonas Savania, to me, is very athletic going forward, right? You want him climbing to the second level. You want him pulling out in front of runs. To me, that's better at guard. I can weaponize that more at guard. Not that you can't weaponize that at tackle, but you're also not going to be exposed in space. You don't have to kick slide out as much when you're a guard and you've got bumpers on either side. There is a limit to the space that defensive linemen can work with. So for me, Savania, I think projects as a good quality starter. Now, I have some qualms about like his upside, whether or not he really is worth a top 40 pick, but like whatever. I've been asking the Dolphins to take the offensive line seriously forever. So I'm not going to sit up here and contradict what I've been saying for the past couple of years and complain about the fact that the team got aggressive for the offensive line. I'm not going to do it. Is it the player I would have picked? Is it perfect value? Blah, 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 whatever. He's a starting guard. They're going to go into next season with James Daniels and Jonas Savania at guard. And Lord, that's so much better than anything that they've had in the past 3 to 4 years, at least, at a minimum, right? Like since the Ajayi year, right? Like Robert Hunt was a good guard and they could never figure out the spot next to him. And then he left and they couldn't figure out either spot last year. Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg, God bless their souls. And so I think Jonas Savania is a good player. I think he comes in for you. He starts. You're happy about it. We can do the whole, was he worth a top 40 pick thing down the line when his second contract comes up. Yep. Right now, he's an upgrade. He's a scheme fit. He seems like a culture fit. I think the theme of this class to me was we're going to get a bunch of tough players for the most part. There's like 1 or 2 exceptions, but generally speaking, it was we want tough players with high character who are physical. Jonas Savania fits that to a T. We can gripe about the value. I would have rather drafted Tate Ratledge, whatever. I think he's a good football player. He's a starter. He fits. I'm good with it. I think I just have trouble balancing how I feel about the player and the fit with the fact that this is a 2-player class on a roster that's just like not very good. That's
Chris Brewer would say to you, you're more worried about the draft than we are. That's what he'd say to you. And you know what? But that's because, again, he's got the job security. But I'm with you. I don't, I like the pick. Or, let me say again, I like the player. And I know some fans are like, well, if you don't like the trade, then you're not a real fan. No, it's not that I don't like the trade. Again, if he works out to be the next Robert Hunt, that's a home run. No one's going to remember the trade then. It's fine. But if he's not as good as Tate Ratledge, guess what? That's a bad trade at the end of the day. Okay? Because Tate Ratledge would have been there at pick 48. Nobody would have known about him if he would have been there. But from all reports, probably not. But Ratledge was there. We do know that. So we'll see how it works out. You think they play him on the left or right? Because I want to know if they got the balls to play Patrick Paul and a rookie next to each other, or they try to split them up some.
I think you split them up. I think you
I do
put
too.
James Daniels on the Patrick Paul on the left side, and then because Savani has a lot of experience on the right side. I think he's played most of his snaps.
Both. Yeah, he played both. Yeah.
But I think the majority of the snaps have come on the right side, if I'm not mistaken, off top
up until this year, I think.
Yes, right. So like he should be fine there. That would be my preferred approach.
All right. Okay. Round 5, pick 143. Dante's still picking up the confetti on the floor. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland falls to the Dolphins there. I know you love him, so just go.
Yeah, dude, I love this player. So if you follow my Substack, every year I do something called the All Hollywood Team, where I name my favorite players in the class, right? It's not the best. It's my favorite. The dudes that I just think are super cool. I'm higher on them than consensus. Jordan Phillips was my All Hollywood Team nose tackle this year. I think that dude's a baller. Really stout, low to the ground, compact frame. This is a player who I think honestly is like closer to a more traditional nose tackle than Kenneth Grant is. This is a player you want playing over the center, leveraging, two-gapping. I was so impressed with the way that he went stack and shed just repeatedly. We talked a lot about Alfred Collins during our interior defensive line show. I said that on that show, I said Alfred Collins was the best run defender in the class in interior defensive line. And I said Jordan Phillips was second. And I stand behind that. I think base run defender, stack, shed, make tackles near the line of scrimmage, hold gaps, free up linebackers. I think Jordan Phillips is the second best run defender in the class. He's 20 years old at Maryland. This is a player who's young. He's athletic. He's got a lot of juice. The pushback that this pick tends to get is that he doesn't rush the passer overly well. And I'm not here to refute that. It's 0 sacks. It's a low pressure rate. I don't care
though about that. Like that position,
you took the words right out of my mouth. If they took him at 48, I would care about it.
Yeah.
They took him at 143. If you get a starting nose tackle at pick 143, that's great. I have no complaints. 0. Now, what I will tell you though is that I think if you watch, Jordan Phillips had off the top of my head 16 quarterback pressures, if I remember, which is not a lot. If you watch them though, they are incredibly high quality pressures. I mean, they are him like mowing people down in the trenches. He hits a spin move against Michigan State. You would have thought it was Dwight Freeney on tape. Okay. Now look, I think Jordan Phillips, if he gets 4 sacks, that might be his career high for a season in sacks. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that he's got like this great pass rush arsenal or whatever, but I don't think he's going to be a total 0 for you in pass rush. I don't think it's ever going to be his biggest trait. I'm not, like whatever.
1 or 2 times a year, he's going to wow you.
Yeah, there's going to be like 2 plays a year where you're just like, holy crap, dude, like Jordan Phillips rocks, right? And so for me, though, like I would have taken Jordan Phillips at 98 and been just as happy about it as I am right now at pick 143, which is kind of the reason I'm not harder on the fact that they traded 98 because they got the player that I wanted at 98 at 143 anyway. So look, I think Jordan Phillips for you, I think he comes in, I think he plays like 500 snaps for you. If he can defend the run really well, I think that's a huge improvement. And then whatever you get out of his pass rush plan, whether that's year 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the development track is for him, is just a total plus. I don't think he needs to develop into some kind of really good pass rusher to be a hit for you because you got him in the 5th round. If he stays on the roster for 2 seasons, he's an 85th percentile outcome for a day 3 pick. I think it's a great pick. I think it's a home run. We're going to talk about the rest of the class. I got some problems with the rest of the class. The top 3 picks for the player, setting trade value aside, setting big picture roster assertion aside. I think the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, I think the Miami Dolphins got 3 good football players who are going to contribute to the team this year. I'll take it.
Yeah, because last year, what did they get out of that draft? They got Chop. They got Paul sparingly when someone got hurt, and Malik Washington at the end of the year for like a month. That's it. Getting 3, which wasn't even 3 last year, it was like 2 total if you combine Paul and what you got from
I would
Malik.
tell you it's 1. It's 1.
Chop, really. It's really Chop. Yeah.
They got Chop for the back half of the season.
So it's like, you have all these picks. And I know in the moment, fans get excited like this, this week and over the weekend. We got this guy around 5. We got this guy around 6. In the moment, everyone's excited. You talk to any fan of any team right now, our draft was great. Well, yeah, of course, every fan's saying it. But in reality, those picks from round like 5 on, even really round 4 on, are total darts, shot in the dark. You're hoping more than anything. But those early round picks is where you really got to hit. And I think Miami got 2 quality players. Jordan Phillips fell for a team with no defensive linemen, right? No defensive linemen. He's going to play this year. Because I'll tell you right now, he ain't no worse than Benito Jones. So put him in the rotation, and he'll probably beat him out by like October 1st. So we got there. Now, the next 2 picks, I will admit, at the time, I did not know much about. Since then, I've done research because there were 2 guys off my radar, honestly. Jason Marshall, Florida corner. Obviously, we need corners. Now, it's a 5th-round pick. Anyone who puts pressure on this kid to come into play right away doesn't understand how this works. What are your thoughts on Jason Marshall? What I saw and what I read up really was traits, checks the box. Execution, that's where it gets a little shaky.
Yeah, that would be my assessment too. So this is where the draft, again, I'll preface this by saying these guys are all day 3 picks. It's not that deep. But this is where the draft starts to lose me, like pretty hard. The thing with Jason Marshall is it's difficult for me to be too hard on him because he's a 5th-round pick and because like they had to take a corner at some point. My problem is that they took a player in Jason Marshall that I think honestly would have gone undrafted, and they used a pick where there were other corners who I think had fallen down the board, who had some value, who could give you a little bit more juice. I'll be honest, they signed BJ Adams out of UCF as an undrafted free agent.
He's got more upside. Yeah, I know.
I think BJ Adams is like, if I didn't end up ranking BJ Adams, I didn't end up ranking Jason Marshall. Jason Marshall would have been close to my 300th overall player. BJ Adams would have been like 210-ish. Like I think BJ Adams was like much better than Jason Marshall. Now they ended up with BJ Adams, so like whatever. But like for me, Marshall is a height, weight, speed guy. He runs well. He's got good length. This past season was kind of derailed by a shoulder injury. The Dolphins they had to take a player with an injury history. I mean, they just had to do it. You know, anytime you can do it, you just have to. He missed a big chunk of the season this year with a shoulder. Not a great injury for a corner. Don't love that. The tape with Marshall is really frustrating because it's so clear that he is talented enough to be a starting level corner. He's just, he doesn't, he's not where he's supposed to be, like 60% of the time. It's just like very frustrating. And so with corners, especially on day 3, I get the idea of taking traits, but like Marshall's film is not good from 2024. It's just not. It's UDFA level tape. 2023 tape I thought was appealing. I liked the 2023 tape. I had a 3rd round grade on him over the summer before I did the cornerback class. That probably translates to a 4th round grade if he had come out. I'm a little bit more lenient in the summer because it's easier for me to go, it's fine. They got a whole season. They'll figure it out. So I think his 2023 tape was probably better if you're looking to watch Jason Marshall and go, hey, I want to have some hope that this player can be a contributor for this team long-term. Go watch the 2023 stuff. I don't think the 2024 stuff is draftable tape. But he's an athlete. He has traits if they want to develop him. I mean, you know, you mentioned this earlier. I got to be honest. I think the UDFA corners are terrible. I think they're going to roll into camp with Storm Duck and Cam Smith. I'm not going to lie.
I do too.
And honestly, I would be okay with that. And I think Jason Marshall gets into the mix. Like, dude, we're just throwing stuff at the wall and we're going to see what sticks. He'll get a shot. I didn't like this pick though.
I think why he got picked.
Bad value.
I heard why he got picked, and I forget if it was the Shrine or the East West. He was at one of them and he had a great week. I forget which one it was, honestly.
Well, Shrine and East West are the same, so it was
the same. Okay,
Shrine.
so there you go. Shrine and West. I always get those ones confused. Yeah, okay, same thing. Then he had a great week there, I guess.
Sure.
So I think that's why he got picked from that alone, and plus you combine that with the traits, and plus you're in round 5, you need a corner. Well, I'll take the guy with traits over someone who might be a little undersized and stuff. So we'll see there. But what's funny is the next guy they took in round 5 is undersized, and Dante Trader Jr. at Maryland, who the best way I can just sort of simplify this for fans is an undersized tackling machine, but he's a little bit slow, and he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got good instincts, I guess. And again, the last 3 picks around 6 and 7, I actually don't mind. These 2 in round 5, I'm like, really? There's nothing better out there? But Dante Trader, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, this is a weird one for me because for any other team, Dante Trader being like a depth safety would be fine. Because I think ultimately, this is a core special teams player. This is not a player that I want playing
Miami
on defense. Right. And so the problem with the evaluation is when you look at the Dolphins safety room, it's like, okay, he might be the third best safety in the room. And to me, that's a problem. Dante Trader Jr. would have been an undrafted player on my board. I started watching his tape and I didn't finish the evaluation because I didn't think he was going to get a draftable grade from me. And I try to grade players that I think are going to get drafted. 5'10", 24th percentile, 196 pounds, 43rd percentile, arm length 31, that's 41 percentile. That's not bad. Vertical jump 31 inches, that's 4th percentile. Broad jump 117 inches, 21st percentile. He's slow. He didn't run a good 40 time at his pro day. I believe he ran the 40 at his pro day, not at the combine. To me, like Trader, I think he's a special teams guy, and I think that's fine. If you draft a special teams player in round 5 and that's what they do for you, I'm fine with that value. That doesn't bother me. But like, you have Patrick McMorris and Elijah Campbell already. If you were going to take a swing at safety, to me, you had to do it higher. You just did. Taking a swing on a safety who's probably going to be a special teams player for you, it doesn't make any sense. Take a swing on another offensive lineman. Take a swing at a receiver who might get on the field. You know, I like take an earlier swing on a quarterback. We'll get to that later. But like, this is a difficult pick because it's like, I don't really think Dante Trader Jr. is better than Patrick McMorris. I don't think he's different in role than Patrick McMorris. I think if you watch the tape, Trader is a pseudo linebacker. I think he's another strong safety archetype. He doesn't have a ton of really good plays on the ball. I don't like him in coverage. It's Patrick McMorris. It's the same player. Like they're different.
He's going to be competing with him probably for one roster spot.
Right.
And one's going to win a practice squad and one will make the roster. And it's Patrick McMorris versus Trader. One will survive. It's
strange to me. I don't know why we're doing what is the upside of that. And then look, obviously you can't always plan for unrestricted free agents. John Saunders from Mississippi got a huge UDFA deal from the Dolphins. I think it was the biggest one they handed out, if I'm not mistaken. It was either him or Theo Weiss or Andrew Armstrong. I would tell you the Saunders tape is better than the Trader tape. I didn't grade Saunders. I would have graded him higher than Trader. I'm not even sure Trader's the 5th best player in that room, if I'm being completely honest. So, yeah. I don't want to hate on this pick too much because, like, I think there's a universe where Trader is just a really long special teams contributor and you're happy about that, and that's fine. But, like, man, I think there's, like, so many other positions, players, thought processes that I just would have preferred here, frankly.
I don't want to talk about the player yet, but if they pick round 5, 155, and took Will Howard or Kyle McCord instead of Quinn Ewers, would you have been happier?
Significantly.
Okay, that's all. Okay, we're going to talk about him in a minute, Quinn. But that's what I was thinking. Like, that's a perfect spot for one of those two. And then in round 7, at the spot they took Quinn, you can take a flyer on a safety. Then that's what I would have done. You could even took him then Trader. I'd be like, okay, whatever. It's round 7. That's what I would have. But okay, let's go to round 6 because this is where I got my guy. And in the pre-draft process, and I know running back's not a huge need, and I know. Look, I think he'll make the team. I don't know how much he's going to play, but I think he'll make the team. And I know why he fell, just like you do. Off the field incident last year in the summer. Oklahoma State was god-awful this past year on offense with quarterback play with the offensive line. But the 2023 film is who Ollie Gordon is. Ollie Gordon II, the running back. And I'm a big Ollie Gordon fan. And again, at round 6, that's a perfect spot for him, honestly. Don't take him too high. But round 6, Ollie Gordon, I'm not going to say it's a steal, but I think this is a solid pick for a guy who, if Mike McDaniel doesn't have his head in his ass, because I'd rather use this guy on short yardage than Alexander Madison, at least long term. I like Ollie Gordon in round 6. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to overhype it because I know some fans will take it to an extreme. But Ollie Gordon in round 6 is a guy who, if we see the 2023 Ollie Gordon, he's not a round 6 guy. I know he's not the fastest. I know. But I like the kid. I don't know. Something about him. I think he's got it.
So I was super hard on Ollie Gordon when we did our preview show.
Yeah, you were. Take it back.
I like this pick because I agree with you. I think in the 6th round, like, what is my downside, right, for taking Ollie Gordon?
None.
There's none, right? And so I think if you watch the 2023 tape, this is a player who was probably a top 60 pick based on 2023 tape. I think you had a player who was strong. He was big. He had decent vision. He bounced off of tacklers. You like the contact balance. And the reason he fell to the 6th round is you put on the tape in 2024, and it looks like he had his talent stolen by the Monstars. Like, I don't really have a better way to describe it other than that. Like, he looks like a shell of himself as a player. He got slower. He was much worse at avoiding contact. I think I want to pull this up because I do think it's interesting. Ollie Gordon, yards after contact per attempt, 3.25 is in the lower percentile for all running backs last season. And I think people have this idea that this player is going to come in and just revolutionize the short yardage thing.
No, it's not going to happen.
And look, if he plays like he did in 2023, he might. There's a chance. He has the ability. That's not who he was in 2024.
Compared to who we have, I think, yes, I think there's a chance he can be that guy. And I don't know if you saw the ESPN coverage when he was picked, because they did a piece on Ollie Gordon. They showed the highlights.
I was not having the ESPN coverage.
Okay, let me tell you what. Reese Davis had the best line, though. He goes, he fell off this past year. Oklahoma State was a mess, just top to bottom. Their offensive line play was horrendous. Their quarterback play was horrendous. And then Reese caught himself. He goes, well, he's in Miami, so I don't know if that offensive line play is going to help much.
Oh, man.
Reese with a shot.
Damn, why do you have to do that to us? That's not cool.
Reese with a killer. But you know what? See, I think part of it is that, though. I think 2024, that they were so bad, Oklahoma State.
They were.
They were so bad.
They were.
And for a running back, when you have no passing game threat, for the most part, and the offensive, you can only do so much from that position. You really can. So I want to, now look, once again, not like Miami's offensive line is like the 1984 Hogs of the Washington, then Redskins, now Commanders. So let's see how he does in Miami's offensive line. But if the offensive line's even adequate, I think we'll see closer to 2023 Ollie than 2024. And if not, he's gone. It's a 6th round pick. Who gives a shit? I think if the offensive line plays adequate, I think we'll see that guy we saw just take last year and tossed out the window.
No, I like the pick. And if not for anything, I have no interest in seeing Alexander Mattison have a single carry this season.
Me too.
Yeah.
Beat him out.
Yeah. So I'm there. And I think the last thing I'll mention with Gordon is I think he can protect for you as a pass protector.
He can pass protect, yeah.
I think it's a part of his game. Now, I would tell you that Jalen Wright is also a really good pass protector, and he wasn't really put in a position to do that last year, but I digress. It's just another feather in his cap. I'll be really interested to see if he beats out Alexander Mattison. I hope he does, because I have no desire to see Alexander Mattison make a single carry.
If we're going to rebuild and punt on the draft like we kind of did, punt on in March and sign no real players, play the kids. I want to see Ollie Gordon, not Alexander Mattison. Let's find out if he's got anything. And if not, it's a 6th round pick. We move on. And if you get lightning in a bottle and then okay, good. We got at least a short yardage back, or like someone you can give the ball to 4 or 5 times a game. And that's fine. That's reasonable expectations. Now, round 7, as much as you love the Jordan Phillips pick, I know you hated this pick just as equally on the flip side. Quinn Ewers, quarterback, Texas. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I love the pick, but I don't hate it as much as you. So I'm going to let you go. Spew that Quinn Ewers hate that you have. Tell the world why Quinn Ewers should be playing in Quebec or Vancouver or Toronto or with the Rock in the UFL and not be a 3rd-string quarterback for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm glad we did the show on Tuesday after the draft, so I've had some time to kind of collect my thoughts. I watched Quinn Ewers' tape again yesterday for a story that'll come out on SI Dolphins in a couple days.
Just so you can get some more hate in your gut.
Yeah, something like that, right? So here's the thing. I don't actually hate this pick in the sense that I'm totally fine with them taking another swing at a quarterback in this range of the draft. I think that's something that I've advocated for them to do. I understand that part of it. And I also understand that Quinn Ewers is a good schematic fit for what the Dolphins want to do on offense. He got a crash course on the offense at Texas last year. If you go watch Texas play football and you pay attention to the motions, the ball handling, the increase in RPOs that they had, it's a lot of Dolphin stuff.
They've admitted they took the concepts from Miami and used a lot of them in Texas.
Yeah, it's not so much what the Dolphins did last year. It's really more of that year 1, year 2 Dolphins offense that they implemented, right? With all the motion. If you watch one of the early throws from the Michigan game, the guy goes in motion. They have the flat route, the wheel, and then the stop on the sideline. I felt like I was watching 2022 Dolphins tape. It was cool. My problem with Ewers, I don't think he's good. It's just like I don't have I can say it with a lot more words, but I don't have a more eloquent way of putting it.
It sounds like Louis Riddick now, which he killed him on ESPN. Which
I agree with Louis Riddick. My problem with Ewers, if I could succinctly put it, because I don't really want to sit here bashing his 7th round pick for 20 minutes. You took a developmental quarterback with no developmental traits. Like that's how I feel about Ewers. I think he has below average arm talent for the position. He is not a good athlete. He is not big. What are you developing? To me, you drafted Skylar Thompson with a mullet. Like I don't like. It's the same player to me conceptually. Like I don't really understand like the swing. If you're gonna take a swing at quarterback, dude, like you're in the 7th round. Take a swing on somebody who can move, somebody with a big arm. That's why I mentioned quarterback at the top. It's like, all right, dude, like at least take Will Howard. Will Howard, can run a little bit,
That's who I wanted in this draft.
He's got more arm strength than Quinn. Like, look, if Quinn's a 3rd string quarterback and you develop him and he's your backup quarterback, this is a great pick because backup quarterback contracts are absurd. Zach Wilson making $6 million a year is going to make my head explode if I think about it anymore. My issue is conceptually, I think you're just doing the Skylar Thompson thing again. You're valuing a player's fit in the scheme over their actual skill set. And we just did that for 3 years. And Mike McDaniel's whole thing was, oh, well, Skylar's been in the scheme. He knows the offense, blah, blah, blah. And when he got out there, the man did not have the facilities to play quarterback at the NFL level. And I am worried about Quinn Ewers in that aspect.
I think that's where everything you said is right. I think that's the one area where Quinn won't have the same issues as Skylar. Starting quarterback at the University of Texas, he's not going to shrink in the moment. He's been Texas. They wanted to replace him with Arch Manning since the day Arch Manning got there. I know. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but I'm saying if we threw him out there, he's not going to have the deer in the headlights look. Now he might not have the zip. He might not have the accuracy. He might not be able to make the right reads. But I don't think he's going to shrink in the moment because coming from where he came from, with who's sitting behind him for the past 2 years, and that's all he heard. He's used to pressure. He's used to big moments. He's used to big spots. Skylar didn't have that.
I agree.
I agree with everything you said. I just think and I don't know if I have no idea what they're thinking with any of these picks. I just think the one area Quinn's got a little bit of a advantage is he is used to playing in big spots, big games for a big school. And if they didn't like him, they let you know. They will throw you to the curb and run you over with a bus, and then they'll back up again just to make sure you're dead. And he survived that. Yeah. And so I think that aspect of it, mental toughness, he's got that. Everything else you said is right. Everything else you said. I
agree. And I'll bring this to a more positive ending here as I have as many questions about Quinn on the field. I think he fits the mold of player that the Dolphins have been trying to add to this roster as guys who are tough, competitive football players. As much gripes as I have with Quinn Ewers' arm strength. Yeah. I'll give him credit. Like, he's super underweight. He throws his body around. Now, do I think he takes a lot of hits because he runs himself into pressure? Yes.
Well, but welcome to Miami with Tua.
he gets up from those hits, and you know what? He played through a torn oblique this season. He battled, the Arch Manning stuff. Like, the Dolphins wanted to add high character players this year. Quinn Ewers is a high character player. He's a scheme fit. I get it. I'm not actually mad about this pick. It's a 7th round pick. The reason I am so passionate about this is because the Dolphins season was sunk by bad quarterback play last year, backup quarterback play last year. And I don't know if they're tangibly better in that room still. That's my problem, more so than anything with Quinn Ewers.
That's what annoyed me with round 5 and round 6. Even as much as I love Ali, those are prime spots to take Will Howard or Kyle McCord. Because I think they both went round 6, I believe. Pick 155. The hell with Dante Trader. Take one of those, because I actually think everyone's talking about Pittsburgh. They don't have a starting quarterback. Yeah, they don't have one this year. I think Will Howard a year from now is probably going to be the starter. I just do. It's one of those things. I don't know why. I just know it will be true. It's like just one of those things. I think he's like that type of guy. And I know it's crazy to say that like a pick in round 6, but I just think he's got the makeup of someone who can probably start. I'm not saying he's going to be good. I'm just saying I think he'll be starter. And I'd rather take one of those two because I think they have the potential to be a long-term number 2 in this league. Maybe not this year, next year. But okay, whatever. And they took Quinn in round 7. We probably spent way too much time talking about him. Last pick, Zeke Biggers, another big defensive tackle. Length. This guy gets his hands up, swats passes, blocks field goals, blocks extra points, all that good stuff. Just another big body for the middle. Why not? Let him go in there, fight it out with the rest of them, see if he can win a roster spot, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. I like this pick as much as you can like a late day 3 pick, right? Like I think, honestly, with the bodies in the room, and I don't know that they're going to add another interior defensive lineman. They might not. I'm not really sure. He might play this year. I don't think he'll play a lot, but he might play.
I'd wait to the end of camp and see how they all do, and then see who is let go by some other teams. Maybe.
That's probably
what I would do.
That's not a bad call because I agree with you. There's not much out there right now. As for Biggers, I think he lives up to his name. 321 pounds, 6'5", 85-inch wingspan. That's 97th percentile. 34-inch arms, 93rd percentile. Had some really impressive testing numbers. He jumped 34.5 inches. That's 95th percentile. Broad jump 111 inches. That's 80th percentile. So you have a nice athlete at a good size. Like, I'll take that in the 7th round. Like, sign me up. NFL size, NFL athlete. If he pushes Benito Jones out the door, you're not going to hear me complain about it.
Complain. And that's what this draft was. With those 7 or however many picks, 8 picks, whatever, it was defensive line, defensive line, and at least one guy who can start on the offensive line, hopefully. That's what this draft was. The safety, who cares? Ollie Gordon, great, whatever. Quinn Ewers, whatever. Marshall, well, we had to take a corner at some point, whatever. It was just defensive line, and a guard. That's this draft. That's how we're going to remember this draft. That's how we're going to grade this draft. And how many of those guys actually play, start, and play well. They went in with a plan. They executed the plan. And like he said, Greer, there's a lot of cornerbacks out there. They've been tied to Rasul with the Bills there, whatever. Rasul Douglas. There's who's the other guy? James Bradbury with the Eagles, who I think missed all last year, if I'm not mistaken. So there's guys to be signed. Are they any good? No. But there's guys to be signed, and they'll try to patchwork it. And that's what they're going to do a year from now in that draft. They're going to load up on corners and safeties probably next year's draft because that's the spot that was ignored this year. This is more than a one-year fix. Okay, before we get to the UDFAs real quick here and close up the show, shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are a part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podbean, Podchaser, one of the other 100 or 200 platforms are on. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a show. All right, I got a list of UDFAs. I don't want to talk about all of them. Who are so I think the ones who getting a lot of attention are Saunders, like you mentioned, Andrew Armstrong out of Arkansas, the wide receiver, tight end, what's his name here? Jalen Connors, Texas Tech. Those are the top 3, you think? I know there's some other names in there, but and Adams as well, who you mentioned already. So I think we don't talk about him. But putting aside Adams, are those the top 3, you think, or is there someone else you're mentioning?
No, I think those would be the top 3. If you listen back to our tight end show, I actually talked about Jalen Conyers as my sleeper that I really liked for the Dolphins. I think he's a he's a project. You have to teach him how to run routes. You're going to have to teach him how to block, but he's got the speed. He's got the size. I think you see flashes of really good route running. There's some development that can happen there. I had a 5th round grade on Conyers. So I kind of like the player. I really like the signing. I feel the same way about Andrew Armstrong. I had a 5th round grade on him. I think one of the things that's made me feel happier about this class is that, like, I'm just going to tell myself that they drafted Jalen Conyers and Andrew Armstrong in the 5th round, and that they signed Dante Trader and Jason Marshall as undrafted free agents. Cause, like, frankly, that fixes my, no, it does. Like, it solves a lot of my problems with the draft, if we're being completely honest. Armstrong, big body, really tough, physical, contested catch wide receiver. I think he's got a really interesting skill set. I think he has a chance to make the roster. We talked about John Saunders a bit. I think he has a chance to make the roster. He might be the 3rd best safety on the damn team. He might play this year. I really productive, smart football player. I think you're just kind of hoping that he comes in and his experience as a multi-year starter and a player who was just around the ball a lot and was just kind of making plays and stuff translates, right? Like, you just kind of hope he's right place, right time type of guy. And hey, that's not bad for UDFA. The last name, since we already talked about Adams, who again, if you just take the draft real quick and you just make it BJ Adams, Conyers in round 5, and they take Armstrong instead of Ewers in round 7, I'm good. Like, we're cooking. And I still like this draft. I still think the Dolphins did a nice job. I like this group of players, generally speaking. But anyway, to wrap up the UDFAs, the last one that I'll mention is Theo Weiss Jr. from Missouri. I think he's another guy who is a big, strong, contested catch receiver that I think has a chance to make the roster, because I think they might want to keep one of those guys, either Andrew Armstrong or Theo Weiss, as kind of the different type of playmaker in that room, as opposed to Nick Westbrook-Akine, who's kind of like a big slot type of player. You can line him up outside. He's good in contested catch situations, but like, I think to me, like, Weiss and Andrew Armstrong would be like Nick Westbrook-Akine's backup type of player. And then you kind of have your smaller guys throughout the rest of the roster, the Malik Washingtons of the world and such.
Yeah. 2 questions here, non-Dolphins related. I don't need a long answer on this. Shedeur Sanders. I think Miami should have, like, round 5, said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger. I know. I'm the same way.
It's a tough one, because, like, I do think
clearly
Sanders
the answer
is solid.
Yes. Clearly the answer is yes from a talent perspective.
Right.
But
it's like
all the bullshit you're going to have to put up with, and we put up with enough with Hill. You want to put up with more bullshit with this kid too? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I was Miami, I would have called the Sanders camp and see where their heads were at, maybe. But ultimately, I don't know. I don't know that is really the position. I don't think the Dolphins as a team are in a position to have a good support infrastructure in place for Shedeur and everything that comes with him.
Yeah, South Florida might not be the place for him.
Yeah,
he needed to go. Cleveland's the perfect city for him.
It's a tough
Buffalo
sell.
would have been a good city for him. Green Bay would have been a good city for him. Not much of a nightlife. You put this kid in New York. You put this kid in Miami. You put this kid even in a place like Houston, like, you know, he got a little bit of a nightlife. Nashville, he could find trouble. I'm telling you, and it's not that he's a bad kid. It's not that he's found it before. Clearly, from all the reports that are out there, what he showed up and said in the interviews, it's like, did he not know this was a job interview? Did he not, or did he just like not care and think nobody would care? Because I think the kid thought he was his father. It's like, your father's one of the greatest athletes to ever walk planet Earth. You ain't. He can act that way. You can't. Last question. Give me a couple teams you thought had a good draft. Like, you're like, wow, they nailed it. Because I got a couple. I'll give you mine first.
Go ahead.
I'll give you mine first. I got 3. Seattle, I thought, killed it. I love what Seattle did. They were getting Gray Zabel, Eman Wari, Arroyo, Milrow at the end of round 3. Even what they did around 7 with Ricky White III from UNLV, even that pick I liked. Martinez out of Miami in round 7. I thought Seattle killed the draft. I love what they did with their draft. The second one, and they don't get a lot of credit because of who the owner is and everything, I thought the Cowboys had a great draft. I love what the Cowboys did in this draft. Round 1, They take a guard because you know what? You're trying to block the Philadelphia Eagles. You better have a good offensive line. Round 2, the edge rusher falls from Izuruku, or however you pronounce it, falls in her lap at pick 44. Round 3, Revel, East Carolina. Round 5, Jadon Blue, he's there. Then they get the other offensive tackle from Oregon. And even in round 7, they get the kid from UCLA, Jay Toya. I love what the Cowboys did in this draft. And last one, nothing to do with Sanders. I like what Cleveland did because I like the trade, loads them up for next year. Mason Graham won't be a bust. Swishinger won't be a bust, or however you pronounce it. And then they took Judkins, Fannin, and then Sampson. I like what the Brownies did, and then you factor in the pick they're getting next year. Those are 3 teams I thought killed it. Now, what the Browns did with their 2 quarterbacks, I'm going to look the other way. Not a fan of Gabriel, especially in a place like Cleveland with that wind and right off the lake, but they are going to build a dome soon. So if he survives until the dome is built, he's going to be golden. And the Sanders thing, who really knows? But I love what Cleveland did. I love what Seattle did. And I love what the Cowboys did. I'm not going to count the Eagles because we all love what the Eagles did.
Yeah, so I did a story up on my Substack ranking my favorite draft classes. I ranked the top 8. I'll read off my top 3.
All right.
Number 3 for me was actually the Patriots. I really liked the Patriots class. I thought they got good players at the top and really good values on day 3, as much as it pains me to say that as a Dolphins fan. I don't know that I'm afraid of the Patriots, but I thought they had a nice draft. I thought they did a good job. Number 2 for me, I agree with you. I really like what Seattle did over the weekend. They were my second favorite class. I think they had a few really good ones. I like the Jalen Milroe pick even. I thought that was good value for him at pick 90. Like, okay, you sit him for 2 years behind Sam Darnold, and maybe he turns out, and that would be great. So I really like what they did. I agree with you. My number 1 class, and this pains me because I don't know how we let this happen. The Chiefs are my number 1 class. And I want to say that the way that I did these grades was I graded them against my board, right? So I have a board. If you got plus value at a certain number of picks, you got a higher grade. If you got negative value at a certain number of picks, you got a lower grade. So the Chiefs graded the best against my board. The only reach they made was in the 3rd round for Louisville edge rusher Ashton Gelati. Outside of that, they got plus value at every single other pick they made against my board. If Josh Simmons is a starting caliber offensive lineman, I think they're going to be really good. And I think this class is going to have a bunch of really nice depth players. So those are my top 3. I've got 5 other names down there. I also had the Cowboys on my list as well. They just didn't quite make my top 3, but I liked what they did this weekend too, even though a lot of people crapped on the Booker pick. They kind of did the Lions thing where, like, remember a few years ago when they took Gibbs and Laporta and Campbell? It's like, all right, well, if I just rearrange the order of these picks, it's fine. And that's how I feel about the Cowboys draft. It's like, well, if I just flip Ezeraku with Booker, we're fine, right? Like, who cares? Yeah. So I agree with you. I think Seattle, Dallas, and then I would add Kansas City and New England as well.
One team I want to ask you about, because I go back and forth on if their draft was good or if it's just like blah. And I love their first pick. Obviously, he's a home run. What'd you think of the Jets draft? Armand Membo, obviously, he's a great pick. You know, that's fine. But after that, I've heard people say, oh, the Jets had a great draft. And I look at the picks, and I'm being objective. I'm not being an asshole here. I'm like, I don't know if I love the rest of their draft.
Yeah, so I had them as an honorable mention in my favorite draft article under the category, you lost me after your first 3 picks. I think the first 3 picks in the draft are, I think Armand Membu gives the Jets, like, unironically, if he's good and Olu Fashanu is good, and Olu Fashanu was good last year, unironically, the Jets have one of the best offensive lines in the AFC. Like, unironically, like, their 3 interior players are also good. If Membu's as good as he was at Missouri for the Jets, like, they're kind of cooking up front. I like Mason Taylor. It was a little bit of a reach for me, but I like the player. I'm fine with it. I think Azare Thomas could be starting at corner for them. I think their starting corner opposite Ahmad Gardner right now is Brandon Stevenson, who, like, doesn't really do anything for me, quite frankly. Not a big fan of that player. So I like the first 3 picks. They lost me completely after that. I don't like a single other pick that they made. Malachi Moore is, like, probably the best one. I'm okay with that pick, but, like, I think Arian Smith is I can't believe he got drafted. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm shocked. Not only did he get drafted, he went in the 4th round. I'm like, I'm blown away, man. Like, I couldn't believe that pick. I almost fell out of my chair when they made that selection on day 3. So they lost me after the first 3.
I think with me, why I'm sort of like lukewarm on it, or kind of even like not that high on him, I guess, is because Mason Taylor's fine in round 2, but pick 42 seems a little high. Now, I'm not saying they could trade down. I don't know. But taking him in like the 50s or 60s, I'm like, okay, that's a good pick. 40, they passed on some good players. And I'm not saying he's not good, so please. I'm just saying, I don't know. I thought that was a little high for him. But, hey, that's the Jets. God bless them. I mean, it's not bad. I hear people say, oh, they had a good draft, the Jets. I'm like, I'll tell you what, a sneaky good.
They lost the plot.
Here's what a sneaky one. The Bills, who just loaded up on defense with like their first 4 or 5 picks, the Bills. They have an agenda. Stop Patrick Mahomes. And they stuck to the agenda. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'll give them credit for trying. We got to stop Mahomes. Give me a corner and 3 defensive linemen. And after that, all bets are off. Who cares at that point? And that's pretty much what they did.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't really love the Maxwell Harrison pick, so it's kind of hard for me to get behind the class.
All the corners fell. After the top, after Hunter, obviously, and then Chahad Barron, those corners who we thought would go late round 1, top round 2, most of them fell. Yeah. It's like Will Johnson, every report had to be true. Every report had to be true on that poor kid. But even the rest of them, they fell. Yeah.
No, I mean, they all fell, and Buffalo taking Maxwell Harrison pushed a bunch of guys even further down the board. And look, I mean, that's just one of those where, like, I'm not a big fan of the player. I like the scheme fit. I think he's a good fit for what they're trying to do, but they passed on better corners. I like pretty much every other pick they made, though, after that. Like, I think the class as a whole is really strong. I think TJ Sanders is good. I think Landon Jackson's good. So we'll see how it works out for them. I think it's interesting they took a very similar strategy to Miami, right? Like, because it kind of feels like the Bills' overarching strategy was we need to get tougher. We need to get more physical. We need to be more imposing on the trenches. That's exactly the same approach that Miami took. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how those teams line up in the trenches this year, because I think both teams made that a priority.
I think the Bills watched the Super Bowl and saw Philadelphia just run over the Chiefs and like, hey, we got to take that approach. Yeah. That's the approach to beating the Chiefs. And you know what? They ain't wrong. And they're like, we're close to beating them now. If we can get a little bit tougher like Philly, we probably can beat them. And that's the approach they took. And you know what? It's the right approach. All right, Dante, thanks so much for all the work you've done this draft season. Everyone be sure to follow Dante Colonelli on social media at Dante Colonelli. Read his work at alldolphins.com. I always get this wrong.
SI
on Dolphins. Okay. Yes. And then he still writes stuff for us every now and then. So check that out there at DolphinsTalk.com. Everyone, have a great Tuesday night. We'll talk to you again after a while. Folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.